Welcome to today's episode of the Michael Yardney Podcast. Now, we usually spend a lot of time talking about property, don't we? But we also talk about success and money, as these are all interrelated, aren't they? Today, we're going to explore the habits that drive exceptional individuals forward with Tom Corley, my co-author of our international best-selling book, Rich Habits, Poor Habits. And we're going to take a closer look at one of Tom's thought-provoking blogs, where he said, without luck, success is impossible. I guess this means the only formula that works is the formula that creates luck. And he goes on to say, I'm going to tell you what that formula is. So let's get on with another insightful conversation with Tom. And I know it's going to be filled with practical advice and inspiring stories.
Welcome to the Michael Yardney Podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment, and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect, and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now, here's your host, Michael Yardney, Australia's authority in wealth creation through property, who has been voted one of Australia's top 50 most influential thought leaders.
My guest today is my good friend Tom Corley, who's a best-selling author, speaker, and an international expert in the field of financial success. Now, Tom's dedicated years of his life to studying the habits and the mindset of wealthy individuals. And today we're going to share some of those insights. In this episode, I actually want to discuss two of Tom's thought-provoking blog posts. We're going to dive deep into the world of outliers, those extraordinary individuals who defy the odds and make a significant impact in their fields. And we're also going to explore the role that luck plays in achieving success. And Tom's going to help us learn how we can increase our chances of, well, let's call it creating luck. So, welcome, Tom.
Hey, Michael, how are you?
Great, thank you. Now, Tom, I regularly get your emails in my inbox each day, and one of the articles that you wrote a little while ago made me think and made me keen to have a chat with you and get your thoughts on the comment you made that outliers change the world. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's interesting because the idea for that article came about after I was on a famous radio program, Dave Ramsey. He had like 8 million listeners, and he interviewed me. What happened was, as a result of the interview, CNN wrote this article that blasted both of us. And in the article, embedded in there, they had interviews with a bunch of people from universities who do studies. And they hadn't even looked at my study, but nonetheless, they said, well, he doesn't know how to do a study because he's just a CPA. So I thought to myself, my gosh, they're just dismissing me because I'm an outlier.
Yeah, before we get to the next step, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tom. While our regular listeners will know who you are, let's talk about this study that you did, because I think that's an important basis of this discussion.
Sure. So the CNN went after my Rich Habits study as not legitimate. And what that study was I spent 5 years asking basically 361 rich people and poor people 144 questions. More than 60% of them were either phone calls or physical meetings. And the rest we were exchanging emails back and forth. But it was what I like to call a qualitative study, because it wasn't just sending out a survey, which most of the study experts do. I wanted to capture the truth, and the only way to do that was to ask all of these questions. And the reason it took 5 years, Michael, was because I didn't want anybody to know that I was interviewing them for this study. I wanted it to be what they call a blind study, where nobody...
Yes. Otherwise, people twist their answers to sometimes what they think you want to hear rather than what's going on. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I was more concerned about the wealthy people, because they will tell you, once they know that this is a study about wealthy people, they're going to tell you everything that they're supposed to say. They're going to say everything they're supposed to say about being successful, but you'll never get to the truth that way. And so I had to do this blind study, and I learned a lot about studies from doing the study. I did read a lot about how to do a study. So it wasn't the fact that I was an outlier was only because this is the first study I'd ever done and I wasn't affiliated with the university. So
you were not an academic.
yeah, well, that's it. I wasn't part of the elite crowd. And so I started researching outliers, and I was shocked that almost something close to 75 to 80% of the world's discoveries, unique inventions, the innovations were at the hands of outliers. A perfect example is Leonardo da Vinci. A lot of people just remember Leonardo da Vinci as being the painter and the sculptor, but he also had it was more than a hobby. It was an obsession where he would take these cadavers and like autopsy them. The only purpose was he wanted to understand the human body. And so it's interesting that some of the discoveries he made in his work, like arteriosclerosis, and that the heart had 4 chambers and that the blood was circulated like a vortex, these things weren't discovered until 1968. And so he was an outlier who literally, when they found out that the blood circulated in a vortex, they went back. Somebody pointed out that, Leonardo da Vinci discovered this something like 450 years ago. And so you have these outliers. Elon Musk is another outlier. He never went to university or got his PhD in aerodynamics or anything like that. He's the most successful private rocket manufacturer in the world. So these outliers change the world, and you need outliers because here's why, Michael. The people who are the elites, who are these study experts, let's say, they follow specific rules. They have their dogma and their principle, and you can't tell them that to go left. They have to go right. And so they never wander. And that is the magic of creativity, innovation. It's the people who wander and who aren't necessarily tapped into the pipeline where they follow these specific routines and principles. They're wandering all over the place. And by wandering, that's how they come up with these incredible discoveries. And so I think that the point of all of this is the outliers are the ones that actually change the world, not the industry experts. The industry experts, they serve a purpose. They can validate what the outliers' discoveries are, the innovations, but they'll never really break any type of unique, innovative, or make any innovative discoveries because they're too locked in to their way of thinking,
So what you're telling me is that industry experts, they devote their time to learning an industry, learning a skill set, but they follow a process, a procedure. They look at the industry accepted standards, the well-worn path, rather than looking for new discoveries. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, just look at Benjamin Franklin. He was a printer. And of course, he was a statesman and all that stuff, but he also was an outlier who discovered that lightning and electricity were the same thing. Why didn't all of these experts in that field discover it? Well, because it took an outlier to wander. The curiosity that the outliers have isn't tampered down by the dogma that they're required to follow.
Well, I guess if we look more recently, there'd be Richard Branson, who was an outlier. We now know him with the airlines, but really he started in the music industry, didn't he, with Virgin Music and Virgin Records?
Yeah, he was. I guess the thing that made him innovative was the way that he discovered talent. One of the most famous early discoveries he made was Boy George. I don't know if you know who
really?
Boy George was, the Culture Club.
Yeah.
And so he was the first one to sign Boy George, and Boy George was, he was a little out there, and
he was an outlier too.
Yeah, he was an outlier too. So it took an outlier to find an outlier, but boy, was he talented. And so Richard Branson he just likes to crack the egg and break the egg and see what he can make out of that omelet.
Well, Steve Jobs, I guess he similarly changed computers in some way. So I remember the early computers before Windows. Most people listening to this won't even remember those green on black screens. And boy, was when you suddenly could move a mouse around and touch things. And that was a big deal, wasn't it?
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, he changed things because he looked at the computer differently than the experts. He saw something that was beautiful, and what the experts saw was something that was utilitarian. So he, and his use of icons, that was revolutionary. I mean, I remember a friend of mine, he got one of the first Apple IIs, I think they were called, and he was showing me it, and he was saying, my God, there's nothing like this on the market. That's what outliers do. They create something unique and different, and Steve Jobs was, a perfect example of that.
Well, I guess what you're telling us is that there are experts in their field, and they're great, but there are also outliers. But I guess not everyone could be an outlier, Tom.
No, trust me, you got to have a thick skin, because after that Dave Ramsey interview, I felt like an inch tall after CNN tore into me and my study, and they started throwing words at me. I didn't even know what the hell they were talking about. Correlation is not causation. It's the first time I ever heard that was in that CNN article, and I had to look it up and see what they were talking about. And so, you have to have a thick skin, because they beat you down. The experts beat you down if you're an outlier. I mean, they did that to Einstein. They did it to Elon Musk, and they did it to Charles Darwin. People don't realize Charles Darwin was a theologian. Catholic Church theologian. And boy, did he break the egg, because he told the Catholic Church, guess what? God didn't create human beings. We evolved from monkeys. Oh my gosh, that's something else.
So to be successful, there's a number of different paths. So I'm sure you're not suggesting the only way to success is being an outlier.
No, I think I think it's important role for the industry experts. In fact, that's one of the paths to wealth. If you want to become wealthy, you become a virtuoso or an industry expert. But outliers, if you're following the entrepreneur path, the dreamer entrepreneur path, that's where the outliers, that's their sweet spot. If you're an outlier, if you want to create something unique, the dreamer entrepreneur path is for you. If you want to become wealthy another way by being a virtuoso, well, that's being an expert, an industry expert.
Well, industry experts separate themselves from the competition by sharing their unique formulas for success. And I know in your Rich Habits study, you found that luck had a big part in it as well.
Yeah, this was funny, because there's a lot of people in our space, personal development experts, Michael, and they talk about a lot of things, and they try and create a brand for themselves. And it's usually around how they can make you successful. Their unique strategies that can make you successful.
Their secrets, Tom.
Yeah, their secrets, right? And all you got to do is buy their book or buy some of them have courses that you could take. James Clear has a course on habits, his secret to forging habits. You got to pay, $300-$400 for it. But so they have their brand that they're building, and I'm building a brand too, but my brand is truth. That's what I've been after. That's why I started the Rich Habits study. It was after the truth. And one of the truths is that, for a lot of wealthy people, particularly the ones in the big company climber path and in the dreamer entrepreneur path, luck is a prerequisite. You have to have luck in order to become successful. Now, you can create the opportunity for luck, which is what I call opportunity luck. That's what these guys do, the big company climbers and the dreamer entrepreneurs. They create the opportunity for good luck to occur by forging certain habits that allow them to be persistent, because luck is usually follows the persistent around. Luck visits the persistent, as I like to say. You have to be persistent, and you have to stay in it in order for that good luck to occur. And habits force you to become persistent.
So that helps answer the question that some people are saying, well, if I don't have luck, it's not fair. I'm actually not going to become successful. But you can put yourself in the position that luck happens.
Yeah, most of the luck that is created by millionaires is what I call opportunity luck. They create the opportunity for good luck to occur by persistently pursuing their dreams and their goals.
Okay, so how do they do that? What are the steps to becoming lucky?
Well, the first thing you need is you have to have a clear vision of your destination. What is your dream? For me, I had no dream until I started doing this study, and then somebody brought up the idea of me writing a book, and then I wrote the book, and lo and behold, the book became very successful. And now my dream switched to becoming a really successful author. And I said, well, if I can become a successful author, which is my destination, how do I do that? Right, Michael, how do you do that? Well, you got to create goals. And now that's the hard part, because it's not easy to understand what goals you need to create. You have to define the specific goals that are going to get you there. Like for my case, I had to conquer the media, and that meant I had to pitch the media every day. And that meant making phone calls every day. So I forged this daily habit of pitching the media. And eventually I got really good at pitching the media. And then I got really good at doing media interviews. And next thing I know, I'm on TV, I'm on major radio, I'm on Success Magazine, all these outlets, I think over 1,000 media outlets. And I'm not bragging, it's just what I did. I wasn't trying to do that. So I wasn't seeking to become a successful author. I was seeking to accomplish the goals that I thought would help me realize my dream.
So you start off with a dream, you put goals in place, you define them, and then you've got to do what you have to do to achieve those goals. And you can't stop. Eventually, habits become part of your life, don't they? And then all of a sudden, you become lucky.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about when you start setting goals is some of those goals could take you a year or 2 or 3. So you need to forge what I call daily goal habits around the goal, things you got to do every day. For me, it was making phone calls. I remember over a 2-year period, I made 1,800 phone calls to radio stations, Michael. And, probably 60% of them, rejected me right out of the gate. And the other 40% had to chase. So I made a daily habit in the pursuit of my goal of becoming, getting radio interviews, right? That was my goal, get radio interviews. So what do I have to do on a daily basis? So I created these daily goal habits. And then what happened is, because I did this for like 2 years, I got lucky. I got this Dave Ramsey interview. 8 million people listened to me for a half an hour. That's luck, but it's opportunity luck. I created the opportunity for good luck to occur because Dave Ramsey was willing to have me on his radio program because he knew I was on 150 other radio shows, and he felt that I was expert enough that I wouldn't embarrass him.
Well, some people would say that's not luck, that's hard work. So there's random luck that happens to you, but this is the opportunity luck that's created by creating daily habits. So actually, there is a formula to success then, isn't there, Tom?
Yeah, the formula is you got to define your destination, build goals around that dream that you're pursuing, turn it into daily activities, daily goal habits, and then that creates persistence. That's, a lot of people say, well, why wealthy people are wealthy? They're persistent. Well, guess why they're persistent? Because they have these daily habits. And then the persistent eventually get lucky. It may take years and years and years. I mean, it took me 3 years of doing radio interviews before I got that big one. You get lucky, and it's not just random good luck. It's the opportunity luck that you created.
Well, you created the luck between you and me because you had regular tweets and Twitter. I followed you. I liked your content. I started subscribing to your blog. I said, can I republish some of your articles on the Update blog? I invited you to come to Wealth Retreat, and I remember that first time we met in person, it was fantastic. We then collaborated on a book. You'd already written your great book, Rich Habits, and we collaborated on Rich Habits, Poor Habits, and that became an international bestseller that has been translated into multiple languages. And some people would say, hey, you guys were lucky, but there was a lot of hard work and daily routine that was put into place to make that luck happen, wasn't there?
Yeah, and it was also a little bit of smarts because you remember you and I decided we were going to make sure that we had the international rights to that. And we didn't have any idea, Michael, you and I at the time, that we were going to get the book published anywhere else but in English. But, we created the opportunity for that international good luck to occur. And then when it did pop up, we jumped on it. And I think we're in like 5 different countries. I know we're in China,
Malaysia, Vietnam, a few different countries now. Hungary, Polish. That's right, yeah. Too. Yes, interesting. So I guess if people are wanting to understand what these habits are, they should be subscribing to your daily blog at richhabits.net. I enjoy getting it every day. But more than that, we've summarized all this and made it easy for you to understand in our book, Rich Habits, Poor Habits, that you can get wherever you get books, easiest on Amazon. It'll get posted out to you, or get the Kindle version, Rich Habits, Poor Habits. That will help you understand what you have to do if you want to join the throngs of the rich people, because there are certain habits that they have, Tom, that lead them to become more successful. But similarly, there are poor habits that some people continuously do that stop them becoming successful.
Yeah, we explain all of that, and it's nice to have it in a book because you and I, we create so much content, Michael. And a person can spend a year going through your website. They can spend a year going through mine. Or they can pick up our book and they can read it in a day or two.
Sure. richhabitspoorhabits.com, and you can get the best of this information because we debunk some of the myths and the common wisdom to actually help you. So, Tom, thank you very much. I love our monthly chats. You're based in New Jersey in the United States. I'm in Australia. But it's interesting how these habits of successful people are universal. They're international, aren't they?
Yeah, not only in America and Australia, but China. We're a big hit in China. If the country embraces some form of capitalism, what we're preaching is for those people. And then, this is a worldwide economy now, so there's a lot of money to be made, and countries are realizing that totalitarianism is, not necessarily the best way to get rich. It's capitalism, and that's what that's where we're preaching, basically to those people who believe that they have the ability to become rich in their country.
Well, I think that's the other message I'd like to finish off with, that in the places that most people are listening to this, we're living in the best time in the world, despite all the challenges that are happening. And most people, almost everybody's got the ability to become rich in the Western capitalist countries. Sure, there are some parts of the world where, unfortunately, it's so hard at the moment. But don't give up. Learn the lessons that others have done. That'll give you a shortcut.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Tom. Catch up with you again next month.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
In a moment, I'm going to share my mindset message with you. But beforehand, I'd like to ask you a little favour. If you enjoyed the conversation I had with Tom and you'd like to hear more about the psychology of success, as well as practical tips about property, money and finance, which I deliver twice a week, and if you don't already subscribe to this show or follow the show, depending upon which app you use, can I please suggest you do that? That way, you'll be notified every Tuesday and Thursday when a new show comes out, and you can listen to it at your leisure. So do that right now before we go on to the next step. And I guess you're also getting the concept that I believe it's important to understand the way we think, because I think the big difference between the average investor or the average Australian and those successful investors, business people and entrepreneurs is not their knowledge. It's actually their mindset. Successful investors think differently to the average person. Now, this is a trait you can learn. They have success habits, rich habits, and I've talked about that in my podcast a moment ago with Tom. that you can get our book, Rich Habits, Poor Habits, and learn about it, or you can surround yourself with the right people and get the right mentors. So it's important to get the right information, the right advice, so you can make the right decisions. And that's what I'd love our team at Metropole to help you with as our property markets are turning. I've said this throughout this year so far, that this is going to be the year our property markets are going to reset. And if you're interested in developing financial freedom through investment, why not have a chat with my team at Metropole? Now, the timing may not be perfect for you just yet. I don't know your personal circumstances, but we don't have any properties to sell. We always start by building a customized strategic property plan for you. And we're not in a rush. Good investment is boring. Now, I know there are people out there who'd love to get instant gratification, get into the next hot spot, find out where the property markets are booming, buy with no money down. That's not how property investment works. A solid investment strategy should be about as boring as watching a grass grow. Well, you've probably heard that story from Warren Buffett, somebody sitting in the shade of a tree today because somebody planted that tree a long time ago. If you plant the right seeds in the right conditions, and time, magic, compounding will work, and you'll have a tree. Similarly with investing, there's no quick fix to building or growing your wealth. It's about planning and doing, and that's what our team at Metropole will help you do. We don't just look to help you buy the next property, because that's what many buyer's agents do. Yeah, sure, we've got some very successful buyer's agents as part of our team, but our job is to help you build a substantial portfolio so that the next property is the stepping stone for the next one and the next one. Go to metropole.com.au and have a chat with our team, who are going to share frameworks with you that I've fine-tuned over 5 decades.
Now here's Michael's mindset message. Remember, a change in your thinking will lead to a change in your life.
In my mindset message today, I'd like to point out that we all fail, and my suggestion to you is don't worry too much about failing. Over the years, I've had more than my share of failures, some of them self-inflicted. In fact, sometimes I say I'm a real success at failure, but I've come to realize that too many people worry about getting it wrong, about failing. So I'd like to share with you 6 reasons why failing, why not working out right, why getting it wrong is overrated. Firstly, failing is never permanent. I know about that sinking feeling you get in your tummy. I've had it too, but it won't last forever. The best way to reflect on your failures is to focus on the lessons you've learned and the person you've become, rather than try to spend time avoiding failure. The less time you spend on the rejection, the faster you're going to grow. The second lesson I'd like to point out why failure is overrated is it's a good opportunity to own up to your failures. The moment you openly talk about the things that make you vulnerable, they no longer have power over you. People will appreciate your honesty because everyone knows what it's like when they've had setbacks or when they've made mistakes. Others are going to respect you for owning up to your problems and embracing your failures. And that makes you stronger. The third thing I'd like to share with you about failure is the world won't change unless you do. The world owes you nothing. It was here first. We can't blame the world for the shortfall in our lives, or we can't blame the people around us or the past decisions we've made about what's happening to us now. It's not the event that defines who you are. It's how you choose to react to it. So forget what others say. They're going to judge you anyway. If you want to change the world, change yourself first. The fourth lesson about failure I'd like to share with you at the moment is ask yourself the question, how badly do you want it? I remember Steve Jobs once said, if you don't love it, you'll fail. I mean, you've heard that Thomas Edison made 1,000 unsuccessful attempts at inventing the light bulb. But from his perspective, he said he didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention that took 1,000 steps. So when things go wrong, ask yourself that question. How badly do I want it? And you get up one more time. Another thing I'd like you to remember is just because you failed doesn't mean you're a failure. Never let failure deteriorate your own self-worth. If your head hurts, you say, I have a headache. You don't say, I am a headache. Failure is nothing more than an event. So don't personalize it. And the last lesson I'd like to mention about failure today is that it's just part of the process. The fastest way to succeed is to double your failure rate. Successful people have failed more times than a beginner has ever tried. So, my message today in this mindset moment is, if you want to succeed, fail faster. Well, thanks for spending the last little while with me, and I hope you got some benefit from this show. If you did, and you know somebody else who'd also benefit, please tell them about the Michael Yardney Podcast. There's a share button on every podcast app. On Apple Podcasts, there's 3 little buttons down the bottom. Press it and share it, or just tell them about the Michael Yardney Podcast. I hope you're going to be doing them a favour, and you'll definitely be doing me a favour and helping me in my quest to make as many people as possible financially literate. Now, there's ways of catching up with me between these shows. Just look for Michael Yardney on social media, or why not join my private Facebook group? Go to Facebook and look for the Property Update Facebook group. And I have a way of saying thank you to you for subscribing to this podcast. Go to podcastbonus.com.au. There'll be a link in the show notes, podcastbonus.com.au, where you can get a bunch of ebooks and reports. My way of saying thank you. And when you've got time, why not listen to some of the old podcasts? There's individual lessons in each of those that I think would be helpful for you. I'll be back again real soon. In the meantime, have a great week. Make it a great week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michael Yardney Podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favourite Android app as the Michael Yardney Podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success, and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michael's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michael but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropole to help you?